この封筒の送付はつまり、ベアトリーチェによる事件の計画性を裏付けるものかしら。
Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry episode 4, where we have jumped back to the future, which is possibly the present. Either way, we're following Ange again, and she is visiting with the relatives of those that died on that fateful night, or that fateful weekend during the family conference. And I guess everybody here, including Ange, seems to have a very interesting thing going on here. I guess around the time this all went down, everybody received, or the relatives received, a returned letter as if they were sending something out to a family member that, unfortunately, was murdered on the island. But they never sent anything. And whenever they opened it, they found not a whole lot going on, but a key to a bank vault, which contains a whole lot of money. Just straight, fat stacks of cash. What does all that mean? I don't know, but it's obvious that whoever is behind this is the same person that wrote in Maria's journal in her book, which is supposedly Beatrice.
消印は親族会議の直前、そしてわざと時間をかけて返送されてくるように仕組まれている。事件の後に届くようにしたかったということかな。
うん、そうなるわ。でも少し疑問もあるの。なぜこんな不確実な方法で？
不確実？
ねえ、だって何日で郵便が戻ってくるかなんて事前には想像もできないじゃない。郵送先の郵便局が調査し、送付先不明と判断し返送するまでの期間なんて普通は想像もできない。
そういえばそうだね。ちゃんと到着の期日を決めて、そういう郵便で出した方が確実なのにね。
It's possible that it could have been easier to trace, but at the end of the day, you probably don't need a return address.
うりゅう。まあでも、前日に投函したんなら、どんなに早く戻ってきても、きっと月曜日以降の到着になったでしょうし、死者からの手紙を気取りたかったんじゃないかしら。
死者からの手紙。確かにね。あれは驚くし、嫌な気持ちになるわよ。死んだ家族の名前が表に大きく書かれている郵便物が、物々しい付箋付きで郵便受けに放り込まれているんだから。でも、私は何か腑に落ちないわ。私だったら、期日指定郵便にする。ひょっとしたら、想定しない日に届くかもしれないという不安定さが、私にはどうしても理解できないの。
ウリュウ。でも、確かにそういうの、ベアトらしいかなって思う。
え、あなた、ベアトのことわかるの？
ちょっとしかお話ししたことないけど、でも、ベアトならこういうことをするかなってのが、なんとなくわかるの。マモンもなんとなく想像がつかない？ベアトってこういういたずら好きだよね。確かにそうかも。ベアドリージェ様なら、死者からの手紙みたいな悪質ないたずらはやりかねないと思います。それだけじゃなくて、絶対確実な方法じゃなくて、ちょっぴり不確実な方法の方をベアトリーチェは面白がるの。
不確実な方法を面白がる？
I mean, it's obviously creating confusion. I remembered Maria One-chan's diary. Okay, diary. I said journal and book, but you all know what I meant. It had described playing with Beatrice very often. During those times, Beatrice sometimes played pranks on the adult relatives with Maria. But those pranks always had a touch of witch aesthetics, which was that they were more interesting when they were uncertain. One day, Maria One-chan and Beato decided to use a wind-up mini car that she had brought for a prank. It was a popular toy at the time. Excuse me, and if you made the mini car back up, it would wind up the spring in the tires, and when you let go, it would race forwards. I used to have one of those. They had wound up that mini car and set it behind a milk jug. In other words, the prank was that if you lifted the milk jug, the mini car would jump forwards and surprise whoever did it. Hoping that someone would get caught in this prank, One-chan and Beato had watched the adults from the shadows for the whole tea time. They were looking forward to seeing someone get caught by it, but no one moved the trap milk jug and the trap ended in a misfire. When One-chan had then muttered, "We should have put it somewhere where it would have definitely caught someone," Beato apparently said this. She said, "The most interesting and thrilling traps are those where you don't know who will get caught, or even if anyone will get caught at all." It's probably true that you wouldn't get this kind of excitement from a trap that would certainly go off. Similar accounts occurred in multiple places, making it possible to guess that the witch called Beatrice had a fickle character and loved a random thrill. A fickle person is very hard to deal with. I can't spin the chessboard around to find out what that witch from 12 years ago was planning. Yeah, neither can I. We're almost halfway done with these episodes. As Ange examined these, her gaze darted from place to place. Then she suddenly showed interest in the wall. There, several framed pictures were hung. Many of them were commemorative photos from when the relatives of the Kumasawa family gathered or went somewhere to play, and Kumasawa was in several. And she still wore a smile that made it so you could almost hear her lighthearted ho-ho-ho laugh. Goddamn, I love that laugh. It's part of my distant memory, but I definitely remembered that she was this sort of cheerful old lady.
Kumasawa-sanは事件の直前に変わった様子はありましたか?
I would love to meet the woman that played Kumasawa because I wanna hear it, you know? I wanna, meet her and I want her to do the laugh, you know? Obviously, it's not a real laugh. It's just a sound that she's making, but it's so perfect. It's so good. I love it.
いやー、いつも通りに見えたな。親族会議はピリピリするから辛い辛いと漏らすのはいつものことでしたし。
これは?
Among the several frames, there was one that had something other than a picture of people in it. What is it? It was a picture of an enlarged relief of a door from a Western-style house or something. You couldn't see any interesting subject in particular, which actually bugged me as I wondered why anyone had gone to all the trouble of taking it. As I got closer, I realized that some characters had been written with a pen.
ああ、それはお袋の形見分けでもらってきた写真ですわ。
What the fuck?
多分例の黄金伝説に関係したやつではないかと。
魔女の碑文ですか? 10トンの黄金の隠し場所を示すと噂される。熊沢さんも挑んでおられたんですね。でも、これは碑文じゃない。初めて見るものです。
There was an arch above the Western-style door, and that's where the relief was. English words were engraved there, and that seemed to be what the picture was focused on. The pen writing appeared to be a translation into Japanese.
この扉は1000兆分の1の確率でしか開かない。
That's a pretty crazy ratio.
あなたは1000兆分の1の確率でしか祝福されない。知らないわ。こんな文章、碑文にもお姉ちゃんの日記にも出てこない。
Yeah, a crazy number like that never popped up. I don't even think once.
お袋の遺品の中に碑文の謎解きに挑戦してると思われる写真やノートが結構出てきたんですわ。お袋も案外そういうのが好きだったんだな。なんでも10トンの金塊が隠されてたって噂だ。そりゃお袋も夢中になるはずですわ。
In both Maria One-chan's diary and in her grimoire, there was a description of the witch's epitaph. It had talked about how it was a ceremony to open the door to the Golden Land, Beatrice's resurrection ceremony, Beatrice's succession ceremony. On and on. Maybe the most interesting one was the last part, about it being a succession ceremony. According to Beatrice, if you were able to solve the witch's epitaph, you would receive not only the 10 tons of gold and the Ushiromiya family inheritance, but her own magical power and name, as well as the title of Golden Witch. As we saw in episode 3, that did indeed play out, and it was annoying as hell. Among the Ushiromiya family household at the time, the witch's epitaph was thought of as a difficult quiz. which the family head Kinzo had arranged for to choose his successor. But with the mariage sorcière in her interpretation, the questioner was Beatrice herself, and she had posed the question in part to choose her successor. There were slight discrepancies in the details of the two interpretations. Either way, its ominous contents brought to mind a bloody serial murder, and both of the message bottles that drew a tale of a crime following that pattern. If I could solve the witch's epitaph now, 12 years later, I wonder if I could expose some plot made back then. I tried to solve it many times myself, but I never did have a clue what it meant. And who's to say if we're even right if we do solve it? You know, what do we get? What do we find? If we go to the location, then maybe we find the gold, but I'm sure that whole island has already been inspected up, down, left, right, north, south, and what other 3D and 4D directions. It meant that many witch hunters tried as well. I also found theories like the La Plata theory and the Inora theory in certain books. However, neither of these theories were conclusive.
他にも資料が？
あると思うけど、兄弟で適当に分けたからな。誰が何を持ってるやらさっぱりですわ。申し訳ない。
この熊沢さんが撮影した英文だけ読むと、めったに開かれない開かずの扉という印象を受ける。でもこれは屋敷のどこかしら。光の具合から屋外みたいだけど、熊沢さんはこの中にその黄金が隠されていると睨んでたのかしら。
さあ、いずれにせよ六軒島の屋敷のどこかでしょうな。お袋の預金口座には残念だが黄金を発見したと思えるようなお金は入ってませんでしたよ。さすがに見つからんかったんでしょうな。
Yeah, she didn't. I hate to say it, but she did not. The Golden Witch Beatrice gave 10 tons of gold to Kinzo, which meant that the witch was the true owner of the gold. Beatrice was the owner of all the vast fortune of the Ushiromiya family. The witch holding this vast wealth had massacred the humans on Rokkenjima on that day, sending large amounts of money to the surviving relatives like it was a game. Like hell, it's a letter from the dead. This is a desecration of the dead. I was once again convinced when my family died on that island that day, they didn't go to heaven. They're being trapped by the witch even now and are being desecrated and tormented for all eternity. That's actually kind of true, having to repeat those nights, those days on Rokkenjima. The last place Ange visited was a store in the region between the housing district and the retail stores with a signboard saying Marufuku Sleep Shop? The hell's a sleep shop? Well, this is a nice little cozy area. There lived the man who had been the boat captain of the ferry boat to Rokkenjima at the time. Even he, who had once lived as a man of the sea, had retired after contracting a serious illness, and was now taken care of at the house of his son and his son's wife. Oh, Captain Kawabata. Alright, let's learn a little bit about you. Why not? We're just learning about so many characters here. An old man who used to captain the high-speed boat that went to Rokkenjima and back. And it is beyond doubt that of the existing survivors, he is one of those who know the most about Rokkenjima. From various comments by the servants who used to go to and from the island, the media hoped that he might be quite knowledgeable about the internal affairs of the Ushiromiya family. However, he would say nothing, and so they eventually began to forget about this old man, probably for the best.
あんた、まだこんなに小さかった。立派になったな。そして、さぞや辛かっただろう。お前さんの気持ち、よくわかるぞ。
The former boat captain was in such high spirits that you couldn't really tell why he had retired in the first place. His memory seemed clear, too, and he could remember the events of more than a decade ago well, apparently even about how Ange had been at the time. The way he chatted on was very helpful for Ange, but at the same time, he also remembered the final family conference very well. And the fact that he remembered even details like Battler's fall madness on the boat was actually painful for her. It had been so back then as well, but even now, there was no public way to cross to Rokkenjima. It was necessary to make an individual request to an owner of a boat to make the voyage. I had been unable to arrange for a boat to Rokkenjima, so if he refused me, such a voyage would probably become hopeless. So that's our goal here.
わかってる。今、あの島に来たがる船なんぞ。今じゃ六軒島と呼ばず、古い名前の悪食島と呼ぶ者までおる。
Yeah, let's not call it that because I have no idea how to properly pronounce that.
この辺りの船乗り
Let's
じゃ、
continue to call it
首を縦
Rokkenjima.
には振るまいな。
From the start, fishermen had feared Rokkenjima as an island of misfortune. And because of that incident 12 years ago, this fear had reached a peak. They respected the sea, feared it, and revered it. There were almost no sailors who would try to take a boat to the cursed island. Because of that, most of the witch hunters were unable to cross over to Rokkenjima and were limited to taking a trip around the island. Okay, but that said, most. Were people able, like just regular people from the public, able to get to the island? Ironically, this had caused the sense of mystery surrounding Rokkenjima, to increase even more, which had resulted in the propagation of the bizarre witch stories that they love so much.
船は出してもらえるでしょうか？
明日だけ返してもらう約束になっとる。
Oh, well, perfect.
最近はエンジンがだいぶご機嫌斜めらしいがな。かっ飛ばしてやるわい。
The former boat captain promised that tomorrow he would go back to his previous job and take his boat out to Rokkenjima. Now, my method of transport to Rokkenjima is insured. This is probably all I can do on Nijima. All that's left is tomorrow. On Rokkenjima, I'll reach the final destination of a journey that stretches back 12 years.
よかったね。これで島へ行けるようになったね。
そうね。船を見つけるのは難しいと聞いていたから、船長が協力的で助かったわ。
Yeah, he seems like a really great guy.
エンジェ様ほどではないにしても、船長にとっても12年前の事件は未だ抜けないトゲなんでしょうね。ウリュウ、船長さんも心の整理がつかなかったんだね、ずっと。そりゃそうでしょう。約束通り10月5日にあのじいさんが船を出してくれれば大勢が助かった可能性がある。ちょっと風が強いからといって船を渋らなければ。ウリュウ、そんなこと言っちゃダメだよ。船長さんもそれを今日までずっと苦しんできたはずだよ。
Apparently, they truly had been right in the middle of a typhoon on October 5th. According to the boat captain, he had known for certain that they'd be trapped by the typhoon if they headed to Rokkenjima on October 4th. But the family had been very persistent about the date of their conference, which had been determined beforehand. It was only natural. All of the relatives had been very busy at the time, and they came to the family conference only after arranging their schedules beforehand. It was probably a situation where they couldn't easily push it back to the next week just because a typhoon was approaching. It wasn't the boat captain's fault, but perhaps you could say that he wasn't so irresponsible that he could place the blame wholly on the typhoon. So going back to the date being as fixed as it was, guys, as you get older, you'll find that it's like stupidly hard to try to arrange something with friends, peers, family members, this and that, unless it's like on a weekend and it's like a holiday or something and you're already in the area, then no, it's pretty impossible. Like, I would love to visit some of my friends, but they don't really live in the area. I'd like to hang out with them, but it's not as easy as like, all right, let's just, get together after school or whatever, because we all have, gone in our own directions. We all have our own lives. We're working. I'm sure we're all getting ready for families and all that to create of our own. So, similar here, everybody has moved on to their own positions in life, I guess you can say. They all left Rokkenjima, started their own families, started their businesses or whatever, allowed them to fail quite a bit. But either way, I mean, their businesses are their lives, and they have to dedicate even more than a regular old, salary worker would ever have to. So it's how it is. It sucks. So weather be damned, they made this work, or they tried to at least. Certainly, just as those two said, there's no doubt that the boat captain has been dragging the events of 12 years ago along with him this whole time. And by taking me, the last member of the Ushiromiya line, to the island, and bringing me back safely, he might be trying to find some resolution for his past.
船は昼過ぎに帰ってくることになってる。それからあんたをロッケン島へ案内するから、到着は夕方前になるだろう。電気も明かりもない島だ。あまり長いはできんぞ。その程度の上陸で、あんたの気は済むかね。
長い舌から何かの気が済む。船を出してもらえるだけでも感謝します。
うん。すまんな。わしが船を手放していなければ、ケチなことを言わず、好きなだけ島へ案内してやれるんだが。
It's not like I have a goal of doing something in particular on Rokkenjima, so I'll be there during the evening. The evening, which straddles the two different worlds of day and night, seemed almost like a borderline between this world and the next. Or possibly 1998 and 1986, and it felt like the most fitting time to visit Rokkenjima. It's not like I have anything in particular to do there. Just staying there for a few hours should be enough for me to find some closure. Oh, I forgot about this guy. At the time, there was a small knock on the paper sliding door, and Amakusa stuck his head in, tapping his watch. I nodded back and told him about how I had succeeded in reserving a boat for tomorrow.
それはよかった。そろそろ参りましょう。船長、明日はよろしくお願いします。
ああ、任せておけ。お前さんたちの難儀な事情も聞いとる。わしも当時のワイドショーを見ていて、面白半分に事件をかき回す連中に虫唾が走っとったもんだ。協力は惜しまんよ。
ありがとうございます。
Yeah, honestly, what a guy.
それでは明日、これ、船代に。
Ange took a wrapped wad of 10,000 yen bills from her pocket. The boat captain should have noticed its thickness as well, but he paid it absolutely no interest and shook his head.
わしはお前さんに感謝しとるよ。これは天のお導きだ。あんたをロッケン島へ連れて行き、そして無事に連れ帰る最後のチャンスをくださったんだ。わしは金蔵さんに任されていた最後の仕事を、今、ようやく終えることができる。だからあんたには感謝してる。金は、当時の金蔵さんからたらふくもらってる。あんたから取れんよ。
ありがとうございます。
Again, what a guy. Seriously.
階段、足元に気をつけてな。急だぞ。
I went down the steep staircase that was the exact opposite of accessible. It was getting hard to believe that there was actually a chest of drawers and a TV in the room upstairs. Most of the first floor was a bedding store with many futons piled up on each other. We weaved our way through the cramped futon shop. After cautiously checking around outside, Amakusa dashed out first and started up the car.
孫の部屋が空いとる。泊まって行っても構わんのに。見ての通り、布団なら有り余っとるぞ。
ありがとうございます。万一の時、ご迷惑はかけられませんので。
事情は知らんが、相当な厄介に巻き込まれてるようだな。
Yeah, some real unnecessary trouble, honestly.
うさんくさい連中が人探しをしていると噂になっとる。あんたのことじゃないのかね？
さあ。
Ange played dumb, but it looked as though the boat captain had guessed.
わしはロッケン島を目指す客人を送り届け、そして迎えに行き、連れ帰ることが仕事だった。その仕事を12年前に中断したまま、まだ終えてない。だからわしは、あんたのおかげでその仕事をようやく終えることができるんだ。だから、わしにその仕事を終えさせてくれよ。わかってるな。
ええ、別に私は死にに行くんじゃない。
Yeah, that's not the intention, at least. But part of me does feel that if I could die on that island, I'd surely be able to go to where my family is. I've finally become aware of it. I might have been planning to die on that island. I might have come all this way heading towards Rokkenjima in search of a place to die. The boat captain had guessed that as well. That's why he repeatedly told me not to die.
ええ、死にません。約束します。そもそも私、どうして六軒島に行かなくてはならないのかの目的さえ。
いや、目的はきっとある。あんたにないなら、それは彼らにあるんだ。島があんたを呼んだ。だからあんたはここまで来たんだ。
そうかもしれませんね。私は呼ばれたのかもしれない。
I was called. For what reason? For them. Father, Mother, Battler Oni-chan, and Maria One-chan. Or maybe the Golden Witch, Beatrice. What is on Rokkenjima? And what will I achieve? Even though tomorrow is finally almost here, I still haven't been able to understand my own mission. Hey, I'm down for it, though. I think it's going to be quite the time. There was the sound of a car stopping in front of the store, and a short honk could be heard.
それでは明日、失礼します。
Winding between the stacks of futons in the cramped store, I was about to go outside, and then my feet stopped.
どうしたね？
あれは
What is what?
あれ？はて、何の話だね？
What? Trembling all over, I pointed at it. But no matter how much the boat captain squinted, he noticed absolutely nothing in that direction that should have surprised me. That must mean... What?
ありえない。どうして？
What is it? I need to know.
ウリュウ、エンジェ、どうして？どういうことなのこれは？
私にだってさっぱりだわ。そんなバカなことってあるの？これは魔法なの？奇跡なの？ええ。多分これは運命よ。私は今、これが私の使命だったのよ。
ウリュウ、私には何が何だか。
What is it? Shaking, I pointed into the thin darkness inside the store and froze up.
どうしたんだね？何があるんだね？わからん。わしにはわからん。あんたには何が見えてるのかね？
ありがとう、船長。全部これは運命だったんです。ここに私が訪れることさえ運命だった。これが私が六軒島へ行く目的で使命なんです。
エンジさん、どうしました？トラブルですか？
わしにもさっぱりわからん。お嬢ちゃんが暗がりを指さしたまま固まっちまったんだ。
エンジさん、大丈夫ですか？何が見えるんですか？
あなたたちには見えないの？それ見えないの？
見えるのはただの陳列棚です。
A display case, huh?
誰も言いやしませんぜ。
ウリュウ、エンジェ、僕には何が何だかわからないよ。これは夢なの？魔法なの？どういうことなの？エンジェ。
Sakutaro lifted his face towards Ange. From her eyes slid a single tear.
エンジ様。
理解したわ。お姉ちゃん、そしてベアトリーチェ。
ウリュウ。
This is magic, isn't it? But what is it? What does she see? I need to know what she sees. Well, so much for that, I guess. Well, back to this lovely night.
テストって。
よく聞きなさい。
Once again, there was a call from Kraus to the guest house. And the message was that Kinza wanted to hold a test to see if the grandchildren had the qualifications to become his successor.
当主様は次期当主を孫たちの中から選びたいとそうおっしゃっている。
From Kraus's restrained style of speech, Jessica realized as his daughter that he was being forced to speak, and she was forced to realize that the hostages were being exposed to danger even now, and that if they refused this test, there was a possibility that the hostages would be harmed.
それで私たちはどうすればいいの？
待て。
Kraus put down the receiver and then looked at the grinning Kinzo on the other side of the bars. Kinzo gave his next order.
テストの前に無関係なものを排除しなくてはならない。ゴーダと熊沢がそこにいるのであろう。テストに干渉されては邪魔なのでな。彼らをゲストハウスより追放せよ。追放ですか？バラ庭園に園芸倉庫があったはず。
You want them to go into the storehouse?
そこへゴーダと熊沢を閉じ込めて施錠せよ。まずはそれからだ。直ちに遂行するように伝えよ。我が武具たちが監視する。疑わしい行為に及べばテストは直ちに中止し、お前たちすべてを生贄として処刑する。わかりました。もしもしジェシカ、今から父さんの言うことをよく聞きなさい。
Kraus relayed the orders to lock up Goda and Kumasawa.
どんなテストをなさるつもりですか？
実に簡単なテストだとも。
It's not going to be simple, is it?
孫たちの覚悟を見せてもらうだけだ。さて、どんな結果を見せてくれるのか。
Damn. In that case, I think Battler might surprise you. Looking disgusted, Kirie watched Kraus, who was talking with the children. I hate it, but for now, we cannot refuse orders. In this dungeon, a feeble resistance won't amount to anything. If we provoke him too much and drive him into a position where he might kill us, there will no longer be any way to stop this murderer. For now, the only choice left is to obey his rules without agitating him, all the while waiting for an opportunity. However, if we continue to obediently follow his commands, the children might be attacked in this so-called test, and they might even lose their lives. Whether we feign obedience or try to resist, nothing will cause the situation to improve. Anyway, straining our eyes so that we don't let a single chance escape until the very end is the only resistance possible now. While telling herself this, Kirie watched over Kraus as he delivered Kinzo's orders.
キリエさん、ここは辛抱しましょう。
分かってるわ。悔しいけれど、今は待つしかない。この鉄格子さえ何とかできれば、私たちは屋敷へ戻ることができるんだから。
なんとかここを出られれば、試してみましょう。金蔵さん、頼みがある。何か我が友よ。金蔵さんが子供たちを試したいというのはよくわかった。金蔵さんの納得のいくようにするといい。金蔵さんの力がなければとっくに潰れていたかもしれない後宮家だ。その担い手を慎重に選びたい気持ち、それにそのための親族会議だ。私ら邪魔はせんよ。お前の理解が得られて助かる。そうだ、これは親族会議なのだ。私が次期当主を選び決定する最後の親族会議なのだよ。
Where you will possibly select your successor, I think you mean.
それでだが金蔵さん、ここはあまりに冷えすぎる。あんたのテストの邪魔はせんから、もう少し暖かい場所に移してもらうことはできんかね。
At Nanjo's words, the slight signs that Kinzo's mood had been improving were blown away. Nanjo was struck with a moment of silence as Kinzo gazed at him with dangerous eyes, as though appraising him.
確かにここは冷えますね。老体にはおつらいでしょう。親方様、上の部屋に移し替えても良いのでは。
それはできぬ。甘いぞ南條。お前は一手猶予を与えるような素振りで実に華麗に布石を打つではないか。その手には乗らんぞ。 凍えるというなら真っ赤に焼けた石炭でも敷き詰めてやればよい。
申し訳ございません。
Virgilia had tried to help out, but in the end, Kinzo would not comply.
あなたたちはおとなしいのね。その気になればこんな鉄格子簡単に破れるでしょう。
ここを破ったとて何もなりません。
確かにここを破ったならゴールドスミスのゲームが終わることを意味する。あなたたちも、そしてゲストハウスの人間たちも即座に金蔵の儀式の生贄となるでしょうね。でも案外あなたたちだけかもしれないわよ、この状況を打開できる力を持っているのはね。
I don't know. I really don't know.
黄金鏡にたどり着きたいんでしょ。叶えたい夢がいっぱいあるんでしょ。
ガープ、挑発はいけませんよ。これはあなたのゲームではない。親方様の、そしてお嬢様のゲームです。
どうしたロノウェイ。
いえいえ何も。捕虜とおしゃべりをしていました。お許しを。
Gap sent one final sneering smile at Kanun and then turned away. Kanun could only bite his lower lip and shake his fists.
くそ。よく頑張ったね。よく我慢したよ。
僕たちは無力だ。家具だから。
そうだね。私たちは無力。でも家具は必要とされることだって。そして愛されることだってあるよ。今の私たちは暗い地下室にしまわれているだけ。きっといつか誰かが愛してくれる、必要としてくれるから。だから今は挑発に乗らないで耐えようね。
お父さん、ゴーダたちを倉庫に閉じ込めるよ
う。よかろう。電話を切ってよい。シエスタ姉妹、孫たちがゴーダと熊沢を閉じ込めるのを監視せよ。もしも不審な動きがあるようならば、その時点で次期当主を選ぶテストは終了だ。
I don't know how to feel about these characters, by the way. You know, just shortly after I got somewhat used to the Seven Sisters of Purgatory, then we got these wacky-ass characters to kind of take their place here. When Kinzo made his order, the Chester sisters appeared behind him in a line.
了解であります。石膏は私がやる。556と410は両翼支援。
Wait, 556? Who the hell's that?
45は全集警戒。
00-556は。
そうだった。すまない。
Yeah, 556 isn't here.
いい子でした。だから私は嫌いに。いいやつは。
何をしているかシエスタ姉妹、我が命令を遂行せよ。
失礼しました。では監視に向かうであります。出撃。
And there they go. The Chester sisters erased their forms simultaneously. Nanjo and Kirie had witnessed the instance they appeared and disappeared as if by teleportation. But they interpreted this as moving in and out of the darkness in a way that only looked like teleportation. And the two could do nothing but rub their eyes.
さて、私はテストの準備をしよう。ロノウェイ、ガープ、お前たちには試験官を頼む。ワルギリアはこやつらを監視するように。何しろ我が家具が2人いる。一応は警戒せよ。
He glanced at Shannon and Kanun. Tightly closing her eyes, Shannon gave a silent bow and answered wordlessly, avoiding any unnecessary actions.
かしこまりました。注意します。
リーアの老体には寒くて辛くない？湯たんぽでも持ってくる？
うるさいです。早く追いきなさい。ガップ。
Yeah, she took a syllable out there.
さてさて、テストとは、そして試験官とは。
Not a syllable, a
今回
vowel.
のゲームは変わった試みですね。お嬢様を楽しませる展開になると良いのですが。
さあさあおいでなさい。ヤギの従者たち。
Hello, goat. And another goat. and a third goat. Virgilia began to call out into the darkness, and from that spot, 3 massive goat-headed attendants suddenly appeared.
リーチの眷属ね。便利だわ。しかも暖かそうだし。ああ、湯たんぽの代わりね。なら、ヤギより羊の方がいいんじゃない？
No, that's Catherine.
カシミヤ臓器のくせにうるさいですよ。彼らは賢くはありませんが、命令に忠実で強靭な頼れる従者たちです。
任せるぞ、我が友ワルギリアよ。残りの者は私と来い。
With a dignified gesture, Kinzo fluttered his cloak. Following him were Renove and Gap, as well as the 3 recently summoned goat attendants.
あなたたちは私と残るのですよ。ついていかないように。
Yeah, I was gonna say. The goats jumped in surprise and then came tottering back. Kirie, who had been watching stunned as all this played out, couldn't help but snort.
愉快な部下ね。ゴールドスミス教より死後の許可は与えられていませんよ。
She was probably embarrassed. Virgilia had spoken coolly, but Kirie saw through that, and for a little while she couldn't restrain her muffled laughter. However, on the inside, Kirie was surprised at the number of people Kinzo had with him. After all, including Kinzo himself, at least 10 enemies had already been spotted. The dungeon that they were currently locked in was supposedly underneath the hidden mansion called Kuadorian. Although this mansion had been whispered of, not even Kraus had known of its existence until today. Are there actually several facilities like this on Rokkenjima, where many unknown henchmen that only Kinzo knows of hide? Just how many humans are on Rokkenjima, locked away by the typhoon? No, on the contrary. Were we the only ones under the impression that there were only 18 people on this island? Apparently there really is 18 people on the island. No more, no less. That's where we start. Were we who bickered over whether Beatrice existed or not, and worried about whether a 19th person existed or not? Nothing more than the frogs in a well on this island. No, wait, not only that. By now, are there actually more people on the enemy's side than on ours?
何が起こってるの？一体。
Yeah, I've been wondering that for a while.
魔女？悪魔？魔法？それを信じろというの？おかしいのは私の目？それとも頭なの？頭がどうにかなりそうよ。
A mass murder by magic. Demons forming and disappearing into thin air. Setting aside the enemy's numbers, how should we interpret the various things thrust before our eyes? Excuse me, that cannot be explained with the common sense of our world. Kirie started to feel like she didn't know what was going on anymore. And while desperately battling the urge to abandon everything and give up, she grit her teeth and tried to hold on to her sanity. That's all we can do, man. That's all we can do. Obviously, Goda and Kumasawa were quite unwilling to be locked in the Rose Garden shed. But they were threatened that if they resisted, the hostages' safety could not be guaranteed. It was fairly hard to get them to agree. But once they started thinking that their safety might actually be guaranteed if the key to the gardening storehouse was to be handed to them after being shut inside, and when it was decided that blankets and food would be carried in for them, well, they were finally convinced. Yeah, that does work.
ここは寒々しいですね。私たちはいつまでここに閉じ込められていればいいのでしょうか。
下手をすると月曜の朝まで丸々一昼夜はいてもらうことになるかもしれない。
That's fucking rough.
本当にお二人には申し訳なく思うよ。
George and Battler cleared a space on the floor and then spread the blankets there. They also left the canned food, crackers, and other light snacks that they had brought.
月曜の朝までを二人でこの量じゃ辛くせめて厨房に言われたなら。
余計な場所には行くなと言われてる。私たちは監視されてるらしいしな。
Well, they supposedly are.
何もお力になれないこと申し訳なく思います。こんな時に皆さんのおそばにいてこその私どもなのに。
仕方ないです。それより 熊沢さんをよろしく頼みますね。何が起こるかわからない。いざという時は臨機応変に助けてほしい。そして何よりも無事でいてほしい。
ええ、分かっています。皆さんこそ気をつけてくださいね。今の親方様はまるで人の命をチェスの駒のように奪います。
Yeah, very much literally on that one.
気をつけてください。
Goda stared at the floor, even now unable to believe what had happened as he remembered that atrocity in the dining hall. And he hung his head in shame at his failure to fully describe that terror.
ありがとう。くれぐれも注意してくださいね。熊沢さんも。
ジョージさんたちもくれぐれもご用心なさってくださいね。もう私には何が何やらさっぱりわかりませんとも。
Kumasawa, you and me both. It was nice knowing you in this episode, but we're not going to be seeing each other anymore.
それじゃあ
Not in this one.
僕たちは行きます。行こう、バトラ君、ジェシカちゃん、ほら、マリアちゃんも。
I'm surprised she came with. Looking at the pitiful expressions on the imprisoned pair's faces, it got really hard to close the shutter. But we can't disobey. We're being watched. The shutter was brought down and locked. Then George walked toward the small window on the side of the storehouse. At that side, there was a small, what is that word? Latticed window that could only admit light and ventilation. Oh, okay, I know what he's talking about. I just have no idea how to pronounce anything. It looked like something from a jail, making the two of them seem even more pitiable. But on the other hand, it would hopefully protect them from Kinzo and his subordinates. It won't. It absolutely will not. He opened the window and called out.
大丈夫ですか？寒くないですか？
ええ、毛布をこんなにいただきましたからね。くるまっていればきっと平気ですよ。
石油ストーブとかを持ってくればよかったな。
ここじゃ換気できないからね。辛いだろうけど今は仕方がない。僕たちは人質を取られている。逆らえない。
なんとかキリエさんたちを救出することができれば。
聞かれてるかもしれないよ。ゴーダさん、これそのシャッターの鍵です。
Wait, can he unlock it from the inside? If so, good. If not, then yikes. George threw the key in through the tiny window. I mean, all he has to do is throw the key back out, I'm sure.
確かにお預かりします。
Goda took the key, showed it to Kumasawa, and placed it in his own pocket. There's only one key to the gardening shed's shutter, and that key was being held by the ones locked up inside it. If the children had kept it, and had it stolen from them by some chance, that would do nothing but expose the lives of those in the shed to danger. And even with the key, the shutter could not be opened from the inside. Kinzo's demands were fulfilled this way. However, there was no longer any way to open the shed from the outside either. This protected them. Supposedly. Kinzo had ordered that they be confined, and we could do nothing but trust that this cold closed room would protect them. Be careful with closed rooms. Jessica watched this while holding Maria's hand and then looked over the thickets in the pitch-black rose garden. Somewhere in this darkness, somebody was hiding, watching to see whether we obeyed orders or not. Of course, when we pointed our flashlights out there, no suspicious silhouettes appeared. But somebody was surely out there, hiding and watching. I was hit many times with an urge to scream at them, but I was able to hold that urge back through reason. The four children left the area, repeatedly looking back over their shoulders. The light from the faint light bulb in the gardening storehouse was seeping out slightly. I wonder if this insane incident will come to an end somehow, so that we can meet those two again. To George, who had closed the shutter himself, the resistance of the lock had made it feel as though he had killed them with his own hands. That's actually an interesting way to put it.
俺たちは逆らえないんだよな。
テストだとクソじじいめ、ふざけやがって。それで母さんたちが殺されて父さんたちが捕まって理解できねえぜ。大丈夫だよジェシカお姉ちゃん、悲しくなんかないよ。マリア、 もうすぐ魔女は蘇る。すぐに黄金鏡で会えるよ。
Yeah, again, if Maria is chosen as the successor, this is all continuing on.
不謹慎なことで笑うんじゃねえぜ。
I like how it doesn't matter which episode it is, Battler will always scold Maria like that.
何が魔女復活の儀式だ。妄想はじい様の頭の中だけにしときゃいいものを大勢巻き込みやがって。こいつは高くつくぜ。
ゲストハウスに戻ろう。おじい様から電話があった際に不在だったらまずい。
Urged on by George, everyone began walking towards the guest house. At that moment, Jessica turned in a circle facing towards the darkness of the rose garden and roared.
おい、誰か見てんだろ。ジジイに伝えとけ。絶対にぶち殺してやるってな。行こう。
Yeah, that wasn't ladylike, but of course there was no reply, only the howl of the wind and rain. The children returned to the guest house, while fearing what was waiting for them up ahead. Yeah, I'm sure they have some visitors in said guest house. They did leave it, just alone. Like, they all left that entire building after securing it the way they did. You know, there's a very, very high chance that Kinzo and some others may be waiting for them after they left from the exact point in the darkness that Jessica had yelled at. 2 rabbit ears sprung up. I mean, not really.
45がすっとろいからバレたに。竜王様に怒られる。ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。竜王様に言いつけるのは許してください。
黙れ静かに。どうせハッタリだ。ゴーダと熊沢の監禁は確認した。任務完了。報告に戻るぞ。
イエーイイエーイ。
What a lovely laugh.
連帯責任で人参と水だけの刑になりたいか。行くぞ。
Well, as per usual, I really do not know what to think of these characters. And now the glass broke again. Ah, the guest house. Well, any visitors? No? I guess it's just us, still. Which is kind of surprising. I mean, they can just, poof into existence anytime they want, really, in this room, if they so choose, I'm sure. But we'll wrap it up on that one. Yeah, the final family conference, all right. We're on chapter 15. These previous chapters that we've been clearing, we've been going through them pretty much like one a video, it felt like. So I don't know what chapter is the last chapter necessarily here, and I don't know which ones are going to be longer than others, but I'd like to say that we're making some pretty good progress. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. I'm getting chills, actually, just going through all of this. I swear, things really ramp up in such a way, my interest increases with everything as we, get closer and closer to the climax and conclusion of an episode. Like, there's a lot of interest in the very beginning, and then, there's this, that, and, whatever going on in the middle. And then as we get into that downhill, it's like a roller coaster. We start speeding up really fucking quick. And then the climax, we do the loop-de-loop, and then the conclusion. However things are going to go in this one, I have absolutely no idea. We're still on the first day. We're so far in on the chapter count, and we're still on the first day. It's crazy. Well, anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.